Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I'm so glad you're here to join me today. I have a guest named Mallory Simmons, and she's going to be talking to us about her business Lioness Proof, her health coaching, and we're going to focus a lot on what she calls gray area drinking. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mallory.
Thank you for having me. I always love the opportunity to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Same here. I know that I've been on your upcoming podcast. Your energy is just so welcoming. I'm very excited to connect. Why don't you introduce to our listeners who you are, what you do, what you offer, and just share a little bit about you.
Thank you. So my name is Mallory Simmons, and my business is Lioness Proof Coaching. I work with women on getting out of the hamster wheel of gray area drinking, which is kind of a newer concept. So I'll just kind of briefly explain it to your listeners who might not have be as familiar with it. So you look at drinking as a spectrum. On one end, you have the very obvious addiction, right? Your alcohol has taken over your life. You have, personal problems from it, your relationship problems. You might be in or out of jail because of it. You might have a couple DUIs under your belt. It's a very big part of your life, and you're very much feeling the ramifications of it, whether you want to admit it or not. Then on the way other end of that spectrum is someone who drinks alcohol like once or twice a year at a wedding or at a Christmas party and never thinks about alcohol. I don't understand how those people function, but I very much respect them. Then you have in the middle here, this gray area where you're not an addict. You don't meet the diagnostic criteria for alcoholism, but it's a big part of how you socialize. It's how you manage your stress. It's how you manage your joy. It is a very big part of your life in a way that you manage. So you're still productive, right? You have a lot going for you, but you're not where you want to be because it makes you groggy. It affects your weight. It affects your motivation. It makes you eat stuff you wouldn't usually eat. Everyone gets a little bit of those drunk munchies. So it holds you back, whether you want to admit that or not. It holds you back in not a shaming way and not an alcoholism way, but it does. And so I had my own experience with that for many, many years. I decided to set a hard and fast rule for myself. I don't know that I never will again, but that mindset's working for me these days. So I work with women to either cut back, so there's someone who drinks once or twice a year and never thinks about it, or completely cut it out, depending on how your brain works and what your goals are. If you want to have that hard and fast rule for yourself, I support that. If you want to have a better relationship with alcohol, I support that. And I use specific coaching sequences, tools, strategies, motivation to help people uncover what attaches them to alcohol and release it.
Thank you for explaining what gray area drinking is, because I think that that's not talked about in society, right? In fact, I would even argue that gray area drinking would be referred to more as normal drinking.
Yeah, it's just how we function in America.
Right. So I think people who associate drinking as a problem immediately think of alcoholism. They think of someone who needs to go to rehab, who can't wake up in the morning and function without a drink, right?
Right.
And so I love that you were able to explain the differences between the extremes, right? The alcoholism, those that really don't care less about alcohol, and then those in the middle who are very much in that relationship with alcohol, whether they want to be or not. And they're being told and brainwashed that it's totally normal to be having, to be drinking every night, or if you go out with friends, there has to be alcohol involved. Recently, I did a reading with a client who just briefly mentioned that she was cutting back on alcohol. She followed that up with, but I'm still fun even when I don't drink. And I thought that was so interesting because I think a lot of people think in order to be fun, I also have to drink. And so I think that also falls in that gray area drinking and that idea of I'd be boring if I went out with my friends and I chose not to drink, especially if you're around people who associate with gray area drinking quite often.
100%. And I hear that so often from people who are like not interested, but interested in working with me. You know what I mean? Because they're like, I can't imagine not drinking when my friends are drinking. And I was that way for a while. Like I completely understand and I'm not judging that. But it's a lie. It's not true. Like your friends really don't care what's in your drink. They don't care what's in your cup. And if they care what's in your cup, it's because they want to justify what's in theirs. But if you look at alcohol from a logical perspective, it shrinks your brain. It makes you susceptible to 7 types of cancer and dementia. And if anything else in the world did that, you would cut it out. So we hold on to it in society because the alcohol industry paid for these studies to be done in the 70s and 80s that said alcohol in moderation, using air quotes there, is good for you. They paid for those studies to be done and they were flawed in how they were conducted to prove that you should drink a little bit, but it's a lie. And new studies are showing that it's a lie and it is harming us. You know, it is increasing your weight. It is damaging every organ in your body. It is damaging your skin. It is damaging everything. So if we just take the emotionality out of it, the shame, the judgment, everything around alcoholism, and we just look at the facts of how it's affecting us, it was so much easier for me to walk away. I worked so hard on my nutrition and my exercise and my brain and like what goes in my mind. Why would I continue to consume something that is a known toxin?
There's so many things I want to touch on. First of all, the mentioning how if your friends care about what's in your cup, it's because they're justifying what's in theirs. I love that. And also, if your friends care that much that whether you're drinking or not, are they really your friend? Because it really doesn't matter. Where's that judgment coming from? It's coming from a place of projection, really, and needing to make sure that they're not alone in their choosing to drink, which, that's their own battle. That's their own issues to worry about. But they're projecting it onto you if that's the case. And also, alcohol is poison, basically, right? It's like you said, it's a known toxin. I've seen those studies that said having a glass of wine is fine and betters your health. And it's so funny because when you really think about it, when you're thinking about what it is that you're putting into your body, it is a toxin. It is poison. It doesn't do anything positive for you.
No.
And I experienced a little bit of my own journey with alcohol. I was called into, it was an intuitive invitation to let go of alcohol. And I was drinking wine almost every night, not out of moderation. It was within moderation, but it was just that unwinding factor when I got home. When I got my daughter in bed, it was like, I can relax, kick my feet up and have that glass of wine. But when I was invited into letting it go, it was because I was starting to do some personal inward work and healing and getting in touch with my spirituality. And it was very clear, came to me on a random Tuesday, putting groceries away, random moment. But it said, if you want to do the spiritual work, you can't keep alcohol in the house. And I had a lot of fears around that. What would my friends think? I didn't think I was fun if I didn't drink. I definitely had to go through that mentality and, letting go of this idea that when you're drinking, you're basically numbing your pain. I didn't know that. Letting it go, I had to feel all my feelings and I had to work through it, which was powerful and hard and worth it all at the same time. But we're being brainwashed that it's normal and it's really just not good for us. So I'm so glad that you touched on explaining what it is and how it's not good for us and why it's important to think about what we're putting in our body. And I would love to know, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know, how did you find this work and what led you here?
That is an excellent question. So super briefly, I started my career as a substance abuse counselor. I worked with probation and parole for a couple of years. My job was they would come into my office. I would go through an assessment with them and diagnose whether they were in the addiction or abuse scale and work with them according to that. It was a very humbling experience for me because we all like to say, I would never, right? I would never be that person. And you just do not know how you would respond when life throws an immense amount of trauma your way real fast. So it was very humbling for me to get to hear these people's stories. Fast forward, I got into health coaching in 2019. And in 2021, I experienced a lot of traumas back to back to back. My husband had a tumor removed from his head. Our golden retriever died. And I had my first miscarriage all within 30 days. And then 2 months later, I had another miscarriage and found out it's highly unlikely I can have another healthy child. So I had a lot happen really quickly. And because of my humbling experience as a substance abuse counselor, I knew that this is the prime time when addiction can take over, and no one is immune from it. It can happen to anybody, right? So I knew because of that and my education and experience as a coach that I needed to feel this to heal it. And numbing out with alcohol was not going to help. And I wanted to get over it. Like I wanted to let the waves of grief come so I could just move on with my life and just be done. That's not how it happened. But anyways, it planted a seed of sobriety for me. I definitely was still drinking during this time, but I made a very concerted effort when the like big waves of grief would come that I would make myself be sober for them. And so then in 2022, almost a full year later, we moved away, and I wanted a clean break from everything. We're drinking a lot on the island socially. And so I challenged myself when we moved to mainland Alaska to have 90 days without it. And it was just absolutely amazing. My brain turned back on. I've had anxiety since I was born. And it didn't completely go away, right? Like we're all humans, anxiety is normal, but it wasn't as intense. It didn't come out of nowhere. I felt so much more in control of my emotions, and my sleep was amazing. Like just everything became amazing. And I realized, oh, the problems I'm drinking because of are caused because of alcohol. I drink because I'm anxious. I'm anxious because I drink. So I drank one more time. That was beginning of summer. End of summer, I drank Labor Day, and it was a terrible experience. And I just was like, I'm done. I'm done. It's not for me anymore. I'm grateful for my 20s and the silly shenanigans I experienced. I'm fine with it. I don't judge myself, but it's not for me anymore. And so I really love evoking that in the people that I work with, because you just have no idea how amazing life can be when you let it go.
That is quite the story that you experienced. I mean, first of all, the fact that you already started embarking on this journey in this work back when you were doing substance abuse without even necessarily knowing at the time that it was going to lead you here, right? It was just something that you decided to step into. But in hindsight, what you learned there with the people you worked with, plus what you learned from your health coaching kind of combined, those two things gave you the self-awareness to work through the most difficult time so far in your life in a healthy manner, when if you didn't have those previous experiences, you may not have been able to make that sound decision.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing when you look at things in hindsight like that. Like you happened to be right where you needed to be for the path to lead you to where you are now. And I love that you shared your story of knowing that it was not good for you to drink, even though that was the time you really felt like you wanted it and needed it. You were able to consciously say, no, no, I know where that could lead. I've seen it with my eyes. I've worked with people who have probably made that detrimental decision, and you had to work with them later on. So you were able to consciously say no. And so I love that. And I also love that, you shared that you weren't the alcoholic. It was more that you just saw that there was an opportunity to see what it would be like without it when you moved, the clean slate option. Love that. And what you realized was it was really the catalyst for all the issues you were having.
Yeah, and I feel guilty as a health coach, because I think back to, my first few years working as a health coach, and I would, justify my drinking to my clients. I would justify their drinking, and none of us are getting our goals met, but because of alcohol. But I was just like, oh, we don't do it very often, but it's just such bullshit. It's infuriating for me to look back on that, because if I knew then what I know now, I think I could have been more helpful sooner.
You're on your journey, and it's just you needed that experience to get you where you are now. I
Yeah.
love the saying that you don't know what you don't know. You didn't know back then, right?
Right.
But because you were in that space where you were justifying it, now you know what your clients are likely going to come up with to
Mhm.
justify it. You've been there, you can relate to them on that level in a way. It's not like you're coming from this place where you've always been sober and you're trying to tell them about the sober living and they're looking at you like, yeah, but you don't know what I'm experiencing. But instead, you're coming from a place of, I was just like you. And I thought it was okay, but now I know it's not okay. And I think that makes you more, not just relatable, but it makes it easier for people to see the difference for you. Like, okay, she was doing what I'm doing now, let it go. And now she's doing better. And I can see that. I can physically see that she seems like she's got her life together. She seems like she's doing well. And you know what I mean? So I think that is important. That was important for you to experience.
I think so too. And I think it makes me more relatable with it because I have one client I've been working with since the very beginning, and she has known me before I was a coach. Her and I have gotten drunk together like back in the day. And so to see me now and remember me then, she takes me very seriously because she was there live for the journey. And it genuinely shocks her because I loved drinking. I wanted it to be a part of everything that I did. It was a huge part of my life. And to have had this awakening, she's like, okay, I am listening because that's fascinating that you did that.
Your journey is what is going to attract the right clients to you.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I was very similar to you in that respect. Like drinking was fun. It was legal. I mean, I was of legal age, right? And I didn't have a problem with it. My dad's an alcoholic, so I'm careful with alcohol because of that. But I've always been really mindful of my consumption, how often. I mean, I did binge drink from time to time, but most of the time I did it in moderation, and I thought I was fine. But no, you're right. It's everything about it. It's not. It keeps you from being clear. I think that was the thing that got my attention was if I was to continue drinking at night, like when I had that intuitive message that said, do not keep alcohol in the house. I didn't understand it at first. And then I realized if it was in the house, I was going to drink it. I
Mm-hmm.
was not going to be able to talk myself out of it. So even if I decided in the morning, tonight I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to do my spiritual work, by the time the night came around, if there was alcohol in my fridge, I was going to drink it. I was going to make some excuse. It's been a rough day. My daughter had a few tantrums. I need to unwind,
Right.
right? And so for me, it was like once I listened to that voice, I mean, I didn't understand, but I obeyed and I listened and I removed it. It wasn't an option anymore. I mean, sure, I could DoorDash it or, go to the store and get it anyway, but then that makes you wonder, like, if you can't just if you cannot do something as simple as not keep alcohol in the house and you feel like you have to go get it, that's kind of a hint that, oh, maybe this is a problem, even if it's not a problem on the outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's such a fascinating distinction. Like, we all, as long as we don't have an addiction to it, like, we don't need rehab. I think that's kind of the caliber of success in America. I don't need rehab, but I can be drunk all weekend and then go do my 9 to 5 all week. Okay, well, what are you doing to your body? What is your work ethic like? What are you like as a parent? What are you like? What's your exercise routine? What's your nutrition routine? There's so many aspects to our human experience that we're dulling and lowering our vibration by drinking so much. But it's as long as I don't need rehab, it's okay. No, it's not. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That doesn't mean there's no shame there. It's just alcohol is a poison that we really need to stop justifying drinking a hellacious amount of it as long as we don't need rehab. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for me it was the clarity that came with it. I know you mentioned that too when I pulled out and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna. And it was funny because it wasn't, the message wasn't stop drinking. It was don't keep it in the house, which just gave me less access to it, right? and
Right.
then which made me drink less. And the clarity that came after that, like I realized, oh, I don't want to drink while I read cards. I don't want to drink while I meditate or do my spiritual work. And like the time that I would drink is the time I would do the spiritual work, right? So I started realizing like, okay, it's one or the other. I can drink or I can do my inner work. Sometimes the drinking sounded a lot better, because it wasn't as
Yes.
heavy as the spiritual work was. But I was like, no, I know I need to do this other thing. And so the longer I did that, the less I wanted alcohol. But yeah, it's crazy when you think about like now I hardly drink. I drink once in a blue moon. And when I do drink, I'm always really dehydrated. I'm always kind of like, why did I do that to myself? Even though I rarely drink now, it's I don't miss it. I really just, it doesn't, I don't think about it. I don't want it.
Mhm.
It's, I'm just like, I could go without it now.
You said something earlier that I thought was interesting, and one reason I love my hard and fast rule that it's not a part of my life anymore, because you were talking about like justifying getting it on DoorDash and the whole like I'm only going to have one glass. Okay, tonight I'll have two. And then you wake up with a headache and you're like, okay, next time I drink, I'm only going to have one. Like it is such internal chaos that we create arguing with how much or how little or when or why we're going to drink. It is exhausting. Like, right? Like, don't you experience that like exhaustion from wasting your finite mental power on alcohol? Like, I love that it's not an option for me because I have completely cut that conversation out of my head. And it was a never ending dialogue. And I was just like, shut up. I'm done. Just shut up.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have, if it's healthy for you, you're not going to be sitting there asking about moderation or how much or if you should.
Yeah. Right. Like I don't do that with steak. I eat till I'm full and then I am done. It's not a like, oh, should I eat a second ribeye? No, I'm full. It's
Right. That's a great example. So, with the work that you're doing, do you feel like you found your purpose doing what you're doing, especially like working with the coaching in the gray area drinking?
100%. And I know this because, sorry, I'm going to share a little bit of a story with how I know that I am. And it's universe related. When I first relaunched my coaching business last January 2023, I couldn't figure out what my niche was going to be. I've always done like anxiety, mom life, all the popular stuff. And I wanted something to stick out, but I couldn't think of anything. So I was in a networking conversation with this wonderful woman I'm in love with. She does tapping, and she was asking me to like explain my coaching services, and I was just floundering through how to explain what I do. And she gave me a really beautiful explanation of why niching is so important. I don't remember a lot of it, but while she was talking, the universe screamed in my ear, sobriety. And every cell in my body just like lit up. And before she could get her beautiful spiel out, I was like, I'm a sobriety coach. And then I did my whole rant on gray area drinking. And she was like, there you go. And so I just knew. And because I cannot shut up about it, like that's the other side of this for me. I am extremely passionate about it. I cannot shut up about it. And it lights me up in a way that nothing really ever has before.
I'm so glad that you used the words that lights me up because that was actually going to be my next question. Because I feel like that's how you know it's your purpose. It lights you up. It's something that you could do all day long. If you didn't have to support your family and make money, you probably would just do it for free, right? If that wasn't even an issue, you would just do it because it feels good and it's like, this is what I want to do. I'm making a difference. But the flip side of the lighting you up is it's not just for you, it's for the other person because you're also putting your services out in the world and helping someone with it. And so I
Yeah.
feel like that's what purpose is. It's a combination of this lights me up, I get excited about it, and the world gets to benefit as well.
Yeah, there were a couple of times in the last year where I've wanted to call it quits because it's not an easy thing, entrepreneur life, right? Like it's hard. And trying to talk to people about their favorite habit is not popular. But when I have a conversation with the universe, I remember that moment in my networking conversation. And I just realized like, it's not an option. I'm here. You wanted me to be here. Let's do this. Let's make it happen.
I love that. You were being called into this work. The universe literally didn't just tap you on the shoulder. It like gave you a full body experience and was like, this is it. And it doesn't do that for just anything. right? There's a reason you're stepping into this role, and likely you don't even know yet where it's going to take you. That's the coolest part of the journey when you're being called by the universe, and I'm speaking from experience here. You accept the calling and you choose to keep walking. It's that walk of faith of, okay, I don't know what you want from me, universe, but I'm going to keep walking and I'm going to keep listening and paying attention. And that's really how you get from A to B. Or, I don't even believe life's linear. It's you get how you get A to Z, because I think it's all over the place, right? Like you end up, there is no like, it's not necessarily clear steps, but there
Right.
is breadcrumbs to follow that takes you all over the place, right? But it ultimately is your path. And so I love that. I love that, the way you explain that. So what is it specifically about what you do that does light you up?
My inner voice is like, you sound arrogant. So I want to preface this with, I don't feel like this is about me. I feel like I'm a conduit. It lights me up to save lives, because believing and knowing and having seen what I've seen, I don't want dementia. I don't want my friends to get dementia. I don't want my friends to get cancer. I don't want my friends to get cirrhosis of the liver. The women that find me, I want us all to live healthy lives, to have vibrancy and energy and love and joy. And when we're constantly consuming something that lowers our vibration and poisons us, like that's not possible. And so getting to hear from other women that I'm working with, like I went out with my friends and I didn't drink and I had the time of my life. That's what I want, man, because I want them to see how amazing it is without it. Like, don't take my word for it. Go experience it on your own. Go. And if you could question the science that I'm talking about, but if you pay attention to what your body's doing, there's no freaking way that alcohol is okay in moderation when it makes you feel like crap in the morning. That's not good for your brain to feel like crap in the morning. You don't feel like crap in the morning after you have a nourishing meal, do you? You don't have to feel like crap in the morning after you have a good night's sleep and you're hydrated. It just doesn't make any sense to think that it's good for you and okay in moderation. That's a very long rant, but I love when I see women recognize how much better they feel, because to me that says she's going to go live a long and healthy life. She's not going to fall for the lies we're told in society. She's going to kick ass. And I love that, because women deserve really good lives. And when we stop settling for mediocrity and moderation, we can go get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's yes. And, it's funny. The more I do these interviews, there's definitely a theme that I see is what lights a lot of my guests up is seeing the transformation in the people they work with and knowing that they got to be a part of that. And it's like no different here. I mean, you get to see, and not just taking your word for it, not just saying, okay, okay, okay. You're actually seeing them taking it and using what you're giving them and then getting those results, the same results that you got that now you want to share with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, oh, it's such a gift.
That's awesome.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
So from here, I would love to shift to more of a spiritual topic, I guess. You kind of already started it though by sharing about the universe and your own synchronicity story, which is amazing. I do have a part of my podcast where I like to talk about synchronicity story time and talk about either synchronicities that specifically line up with your business that tell you that you're doing what you're doing. You feel like the universe is like saying, yep, keep going. You're right where you're supposed to be. Or just synchronicity stories in general that are kind of paranormal and fun that you can't explain. Do you have anything like that you could share?
I do. And I'm going to share one, not work related. So I was very close to my grandma. She died in 2016 on Halloween, which is a little creepy to me, but anyways. And a couple weeks later, I had a very vivid dream of her. I've always had vivid dreams. That's not new, but she was in this like full gypsy getup, which was very strange. And she was carrying an urn. And she was in this like beautiful green field, blue skies. It was just this stunning place. I'm assuming it was a version of heaven. And I ran up to her and I hugged her and she said, I am not at peace yet. I am not at rest. And it like jerked me awake and I felt her. Like I'd never experienced that before. And it kind of shook me. I had a hard time falling back to sleep because it was a little scary. I physically like I could feel her. And I called my mom the next day and told her about it. And my mom is very Christian, very religious. I thought for sure she was gonna like crap on it and tell me I'm crazy or something. It was the work of the devil. That's what I was expecting to hear. But it shook her too. And she said, oh my gosh, we haven't spread her ashes yet because we haven't been able to coordinate schedules because it was going to be her and my aunt. And anyways, and so she believes that she confirmed for me that was my grandma telling her to go spread her ashes where my grandpa's ashes are spread and their son. And so she rushed and did it like that weekend with my aunt because she felt like her mom was yelling at her through me. And it was beautiful. And I've felt her a couple of times since then. Still learning a lot about spirituality, but I do believe she is a spirit guide for me because she's the closest relative I've ever had that has passed. So I feel very connected to her still. That was probably my most powerful synchronicity story.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I have experienced the same thing. I think that when we have loved ones that pass, especially grandparents, they do, from what I've heard from different other people who have similar experiences, our grandparents are like our guides and they want to see us succeed. And it's like our ancestors, right? They're part of the ancestors that are there to like hold us up. So I've definitely heard that before, but that is such a beautiful experience. And especially getting that confirmation, right? You probably were like crazy dream. And then all of a sudden it had relevance, right? That's where that synchronicity piece comes in. That's where you get like the chills where you're like, wait a second. Did you know about the urn? Like, was that something that you were even privy to?
No idea. Because we hadn't talked about it. I had no idea. But then to add to that, so that was in 2016. In 2021, when my dog died, he died of cancer and he was pretty old. He couldn't really walk. So we had to put him down. That night I had a dream and he was in the same place as my grandma. And he was like, I'm gonna cry. There was a really, one of my favorite country songs was playing in the dream and he ran to me. Like, remember, he was very old and sick, so he couldn't run in his final days. So he like ran to me and was like happy. I woke up just sobbing, like, oh, he's okay. But then it makes me wonder, what is the significance of this place for me? Am I going to go there? We'll see.
Yeah. Or maybe you're able to see kind of a bridging area, like you're able to go to a space that for both, us in a dreamland and the spirits that have passed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Those stories that just give you chills where you're like, that you can't explain it. There's no way you knew about the urn, but yet you had this dream that felt very real to you. It wasn't even just like a random dream. You experienced it as a way of feeling very real. And then it turned into like linking to something in reality that shouldn't really have linked to, but it did. So it makes you think, okay, there's definitely something else beyond what I can comprehend. And those are the stories that I love. I cannot get enough of them. Thank you for sharing that. So if someone were to reach out to you for the gray area drinking, it sounds like you have so much information and wisdom and encouragement to help women get on that path of sobriety, whether, like you said, whether it's total sobriety or just having a better relationship with alcohol. If they wanted to reach out to you, what would that look like? Like a coaching session or being on a program with you? What would that look like?
I mean, it could look a couple of different ways. I have a group coaching program I run a couple times a year. My favorite is one-on-one though. So if someone wanted to work one-on-one with me, it's very much client led. I don't give advice. We come up with goals based on what you want, and I just use my coaching ninja powers to help you get out of your own way and hold you accountable with different tools and strategies that you're open to. So my problem with the coaching industry is it's very much like, I did it, so you can do it. Here, just do everything I did. That does not work. That's not how our human mind works. And so that's not how I do it. It's very much, we're going to look at the science. We're going to look at what's holding you back. We're going to help you get out of your own way and feel as powerful and energetic and badass as you want to feel.
That is awesome. And I like how you don't take it as this is what I did, so replicate it, because
Yeah.
you're right. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own pace. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? It's all different. So that's amazing. You're basically saying that you're going to help someone, you're going to take them by the hand and you're going to help them in a way that's catered to them.
Yeah. And I think that's truly the power of how I was trained to coach versus someone who just like, and I'm not disrespecting people who just decide to be coaches. There are wonderful coaches out there who haven't been through training, but I specifically have a bone to pick with people who are like, I did this, so you can do this. Here, do what I did. No, I'm not doing that.
There's no space for originality. There's no space for authenticity, really, because everyone has their own backstories. Why are they drinking? It's all different, right?
Exactly. Like for me, it was largely anxiety, and I didn't feel like I could like myself. And once I figured that out and did something about it, got to the root of it and rewrote that story, it worked. Your story is different. Your reasons for drinking, maybe it's depression, maybe it's childhood trauma, maybe it's some sort of chemical imbalance in your brain, and that's why you drink. Maybe it's PTSD. I'm not in your head, and I'm not just going to tell you, do these 5 steps and you're cured. We got to do some digging. We got to have an abundance of grace, and also we have to do some work and stay with it.
Love that. Do you have a story from any of your clients that you've worked with personally that really just was very profound and left you with, oh my gosh, look at this. Like they went from A to B and they're unrecognizable now in a way. Do you have anything like that?
Probably my client that I've been working with the longest. She struggled with both drinking and smoking. And I just got off the phone with her, and she had a half a drink. She did dry January, and she celebrated with a half a drink on February 1st. And it made her feel like dog shit. So she was like, I think I'm done. And it felt really good to hear. And she's come so far with her people pleasing and her anxiety. Like she has so much more self-awareness now versus just like letting her anxiety navigate the people pleasing. And so it's just been so amazing to watch her start to like communicate better and stand up for herself in like a kind way. Yeah, I think that's been my favorite, is just seeing her be more comfortable with herself and saying what she wants and not waiting for other people to allow it.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And any of our listeners who want to work with you, I mean, you're just a beautiful soul and I love your energy. I really feel like you're passionate about what you do. So I hope that listeners take heed and they hear that. And if anyone resonates with you and wants to work with you, where can they find you?
So my website is lionessproof.com. You can schedule a free 30-minute consultation so we can just get to know each other. We can see, how and if I can support you. Because, sometimes it's not a great fit, and that's okay. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok as Lioness Proof, and then on Facebook under my name.
Perfect. Listeners, take note, and I will put that in the show notes as well. So if you do want to check her out, all her information will be in the show notes below. So be sure to check her out. She also does fantastic memes and things like that on Instagram. I'm always liking the things that she shares because they're very relevant and poignant and just amazing. So even if you don't work with her directly, recommend checking out her Instagram. And my final question, do you believe that we all have a special purpose here? Like every person here on earth?
We'd have to. I think that we We would all have to. It's just a matter of the only way this is coming to me is very crass. Getting your head out of your ass and paying attention. That's just the only way that was coming to me.
Yeah, waking up right to yourself.
There you go.
But yeah, for a lot of us, it starts with pulling our head out of our ass. I mean, I hear you.
That's
Yeah,
me.
that's perfect. That's perfect. So our listeners know where to find you, and we know more about you and gray area drinking and why it's not good for us and why we should really look into stopping, whether we work with you or do it on our own. Do you have any last words you'd like to share before we end our conversation?
I want to say if my story resonates for you and you want to get your head out of your ass and take this seriously, do it without judgment. Because, and this is easier with a coach, but it's very helpful when you're trying to rewire your brain and undo a habit that is so deeply embedded in our neural pathways. It's not going to be perfect, and you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And so if you can do that without judgment, it's a heck of a lot easier. Because if you're going to spiral every time you mess up and make it a story about why you suck, you're going to hold yourself back a lot longer. If you could just, if you tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to drink this weekend, and then you have a really stressful Saturday and someone invites you out to the bar and you're like, F it, I'm going to go. And you tell yourself you have one drink and you have 5, and then you wake up feeling like crap in the morning. Do not judge yourself, but just ask yourself why, like what happened? What could I have done better? What can I do next time to make this a better situation? And go from there.
That is so beautifully said and true. I think, are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Mm-hmm.
She does, I think that's like the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is, I did something I shouldn't have done, and acknowledging it and being able to like, okay, I'll do better next time, right? And shame is when we beat ourselves up with a hammer over and over and over and really go overkill, right? And what you're suggesting is doing this work with grace and doing this work with self-forgiveness and understanding and knowing that we're doing our best, kind of coming back to you only know what you know. And when you know, you do better. And then if you fall off the wagon here and there, that's okay too, because we're all just trying to do better every day. And that's really the best we can do.
Yeah. I will say the other caveat with this that is coming up for me, give yourself grace, but don't let yourself off the hook. I think so often with this like moderation, mediocrity, lies that we're told in society, there's just so much like, it's okay, you tried. Like, it's you can forget about it. It's okay. No, it's not okay. Don't judge yourself, but also like hold yourself to a higher standard because you're worth it.
Right. That accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I always love the opportunity to talk to you.
Oh, same here.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you're wanting more, consider joining our free Facebook community called Spirit Journey Collective, your haven for spiritual exploration and personal growth. Dive into a supportive community where sharing spiritual experiences is encouraged. Unlock the power of intuition, embark on a journey of self-discovery, and connect with like-minded souls. If this sounds like a community you'd love to plug into, the link is in the show notes below. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.